Arizona is famous for its deserts and cacti, but the northeast of the state is a completely different world. Pine forests, deep canyons, and rocky mountain rivers. That's where two friends, Eric and Pablo, went in early September. Their goal seemed simple: spend a couple of days in the fresh air, photograph deer, and sleep by the campfire. Eric had just bought an SUV for such extreme trips. Pablo wanted to test his new camera in nature in the dark and dense forests. The road led to a sparsely populated mountain trail near the Mogollon Plateau. By evening, the sky was covered with low clouds. A heavy downpour washed out the dirt road, and halfway there, the SUV got stuck in sticky mud. Attempts to get out were unsuccessful. The car was deeply stuck in the mud. The friends decided to spend the night not far from the SUV. They took out their tent and settled under a huge fir tree not far from the washed-out road. Night fell suddenly. The forest around them came alive with strange sounds. They heard the crackling of branches and distant muffled thuds, as if someone was walking slowly but heavily nearby. Pablo joked that they were forest ghosts, but his voice sounded tense. Eric noticed that there were no familiar coyote howls or insect chirps around. The forest seemed to be holding its breath. In the morning, they decided to walk to the nearest ranger's station, which was about 20 miles away. As they were packing up, Eric noticed huge footprints around the tent. The feet were almost 1.5 times longer than his boots, with clearly defined toes. The depth of the footprints pressed into the mud suggested the incredible mass of the creature that had left them. "A bear," Pablo suggested uncertainly. "Bears don't walk on 2 legs," Eric replied quietly. As soon as they set off along the trail, they were overcome by a sharp, suffocating smell, a mixture of rotten meat and wet wool. It seemed as if the smell was following them, sometimes intensifying, sometimes disappearing. The forest fell silent again. By noon, the friends had reached a narrow path among the rocks. Here, the rocky road climbed upward along the gorge. It was there that they first heard a low, guttural growl, like distant thunder. The sound came from above. Eric looked up and managed to catch only a dark silhouette that disappeared behind a rock ledge in a flash. Pablo turned on the camera with trembling hands, but the lens captured only swaying branches. Footprints reappeared on the rocks, even more than they had seen in the morning. "What was that?" he asked, almost in a whisper. "I don't know. We need to keep going. And we need to go faster before it gets dark." By evening, fog had begun to descend. A couple of miles later, they stumbled upon an old hunting camp, a half-ruined shelter, a broken metal stove, an overturned table. On a log, Pablo noticed a faded note attached with a knife. The letters were almost worn away, but he could make out, "Leave." "It returns after sunset." Eric and Pablo exchanged glances. They decided to take a short break and build a small fire. They wanted to warm up and continue on their way as soon as possible. However, as soon as the sun touched the tops of the pine trees, a piercing screams rang out, deafening their ears. It was unlike the howl of a wolf or the roar of a bear. There was something conscious, almost human, about the sound. They rushed to flee, but the thick fog obscured their vision. Suddenly, there was a loud crash to the left, as if a whole tree had been broken. Eric turned around and froze for a moment. A creature at least 3 meters tall stood a dozen steps away. A huge figure covered in dark brown fur, with shoulders as wide as a doorway. Its eyes glowed reddish, as if reflecting an invisible fire. It tilted its head and let out a low, guttural roar. Pablo screamed, and it was as if that was the signal. The monster lunged forward. "Friends, run ahead!" Behind them, broken branches thundered, heavy footsteps echoing in their chests. It seemed as if the forest itself was blocking their path. Branches lashed their faces, roots clung to their legs. When their strength was running out, they suddenly jumped out onto the road where bright headlights were shining. It was the ranger's car. Hearing the screams, they rushed towards them. At that moment, the roar subsided, and not a sound came from the fog. It was as if the monster that had been chasing them had dissolved into the fog. The next morning, the rangers searched the surrounding area. They found only broken branches and huge footprints, which were soon washed away by the rain. The photos taken by Pablo proved to be almost useless, only blurry shadows and red reflections in the fog. Later, the friends learned that stories about the Mogollon monster had been circulating in these mountains for centuries. It was a giant, two-legged creature covered in long fur with a sharp, pungent odor. Native Apache tribes believed it to be the spirit of an ancient warrior punished for his cruelty. Modern hunters and tourists reported nighttime screams, overturned camps, and strange tracks, but no evidence was ever found. 10 days after the incident, one of the rangers called Eric. He said that a tourist camp had recently been found torn to shreds in the same area. There were no people or signs of a struggle, only huge footprints leading deep into the mountains. "Looks like your monster is back," said the ranger.